the actual when like defending.
I think it's like
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian. Man. Come on, Ian. As the big man just said there, people deluded. I'm back again. Special guest settings. We've got Dan Potts in the building. We've got a lot to cover. How you doing, my guy? You good?
Yeah, very good, man. Always good to see you and right on the picture, man. My hero. So, yeah, man. Good to see you, mate. How are you?
I'm good, man. And yeah, man, it feels like we spoke quite a lot. And I just deeped because I was on your channel a few days ago. Make sure you're subscribed to Dan and the 12th Man podcast and all the stuff he does across all the socials. Information's in the description. Stop being lazy and do that. Now, we've got a lot to go over. And I know you're very opinionated. And me and you have spoken on your channel at lengths. But the first thing I actually want to ask you, with it being the international break and obviously there's been a lot of football, what are your feelings around the football club, or better yet, how we're doing this season up until this point?
I think a lot of people have been talking about the style of play difference, and I think a lot of people have struggled with that. Last season, it was electric watching Arsenal, and it hasn't been this season. But it doesn't mean to say that we aren't in a further away position to where we were last year in terms of the points and the fact that we're going for the league title still. I think everyone can see that Arsenal are probably in a title race, or at least will be in a title race come the end of the season. I think that it would be a disappointment if Arsenal weren't. The difference this side, DG, is that Liverpool are going to be with us, man. I really feel that. I feel like Liverpool are back. And I think in January they could get even stronger if they're to sort the number 6 out. I still do feel that there may be a number 6 and a centre half away from really sorting some teams out because they can score goals. As far as Arsenal were concerned, I think we're kind of the opposite, really. I think we've been solid defensively. I think we've looked at our midfield in Declan Rice, and it's been probably the only positive this season in our midfield. Up top, I still feel like we're struggling to be clinical at times, and I think some of that has been to do with Jesus being out. But even when Jesus is out, he sometimes isn't as clinical as we'd like him to be. So, you know, there's a lot to take in so far in terms of the Havertz, the goalkeeper, Partey being at right back, Gabriel dropped randomly for 3 games, keeping the faith in Eddie Nketiah and Reece Nelson as opposed to going into the market. And unfortunately, a lot of that is going to come down to Mikel Arteta if it goes wrong. We just hope that it goes right so that we don't have to start pointing fingers, that we can just actually win something this season, which I think is what everybody wants us to do, man.
You're right, man. And you touched on something, 2 things. But the first thing I want to, because I think you're bang on the money. Why do you think there's been a style of a change in our style of play? And is it necessarily a bad thing? And why is it, in your opinion, that we look half decent in the middle of the park? We've evidently improved defensively, even though there's many gears to go up. But up front, kind of regardless of who plays, it doesn't. We don't really look like a team that's creating or scoring. And it sounds silly because we got 80 odd with these players last year, and we've got 20 odd goals at this moment in time, and we're still calling for a striker. So yeah, what do you make of that? What do you think it's down to?
I think it's down to the manager. I think the manager wants to try to learn from mistakes of last season where we went gung-ho in most games. And I think that we got caught out in a couple, namely at Old Trafford. There's no way we should have lost that game, but we did. They caught us on their counter. And I think there's games last season that we were going really gung-ho and we were going all out, free-flowing style, attractive attacking style football. And I think we got caught out, and I think he's changed that. The problem when you do is to change that is that you're going to find that in front of goal, it's not as pleasing as it was from last year. There's still been goals that we've conceded, DG. Let's not get it twisted. Like, we still have conceded bad goals this season. You know,
we still shoot ourselves in the foot, unfortunately. You're right, man.
We do, and we've made mistakes early on in games again this season. You know, if you look at the goals that we've conceded at home at the Emirates this season, they've been frustrating. You know, even from Forest right from the off. Fulham, Zinchenko gives the ball away. They get a corner. They score from it from Paul Markin. They're down to 10 men. We should not be dropping points there. At home in the North London derby, Gabriel Jesus goes through, tries to make it 2-0, balloons it over the bar. We end up drawing the game through a mistake from Jorginho. So it isn't all ironed out. There's still mistakes here, but definitely style-wise some problems that we are not getting the transition as quickly as we were last season. And I think the manager's trying to look at potentially not tiring all these players out and going gung-ho in a bit of a Jurgen Klopp way where they kind of hit stalemate after about 3 seasons of just destroying teams. They then just got to a stage where they looked exhausted and knackered. Now, I think Arteta's looking at that thinking, let's just try and do things a little bit steadier this season. And a little bit like Man City, to be fair, who, again, haven't started amazingly well. You know, when it gets to February, they ain't going to lose a game.
Yeah, so they're in full gear,
we're going to have to try and replicate that.
So where are you at with the striker thing? Because I think every Arsenal fan, you know, we love Gabriel Jesus, and we'll get onto his comments in a minute, but we all love what Gabriel Jesus does, what he is as a footballer, but goals win games, and we don't have that. It's not just down to him, of course, but we don't have that clinical number 9. Where are you at with a striker? Would you bring in a striker? And do you think, based on our chances created, the touches we have in the opposition box, and not really scoring, do you think a striker necessarily solves all of these issues? Or does Arteta have to do a bit more on the training ground?
I think it takes us further forward, but it doesn't solve all the issues. I think he's the guy that I want. I've wanted Ivan Toney for a while.
You're not alone, man.
Yeah, when he first come to the Premier League, I thought, what's this guy going to be like? Been raved about, spoken about, was at Newcastle at an early age. And then I thought, wow, you are actually not a bad centre forward. Are you going to take Arsenal to a title? Not for me. Then I saw him last season. I thought, actually, you're just what we need. You're an all-round
20 league goals.
Yeah, 20 league goals for Brentford. And people will go, yeah, but 7 of those were penalties. I don't care, man. It counts.
Still got to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, penalties count. You know, he could have missed 7. So I look at
Exactly.
Ivan Toney and think that he's an all-round player. He can hold the ball up. He's killer in front of goal. He can head the ball. He can take set pieces, whether it be free kicks or penalties, and he delivers at both of them. I think he's an absolute nuisance. He's got power, strength, pace. I think he's pretty much got everything that you need in an all-round striker. I'm not saying that he's a world-class level, but he'll definitely take us to that next step, which I think will be more of a killer centre forward. And it's surprising to me, DG, that Arteta has not signed any other player than Gabriel Jesus in the 4.5 years that he's been here. In terms of a striker, he's stuck with it.
Yeah, out and out striker. You're right.
Jesus is the only one, man.
Yeah.
And in terms of attackers, I think we've only bought Willian and Trossard from thinking about it as well. So it's not like we've gone mad in those positions. Do you know what I'm saying?
You're bang on the money. I'm scratching my head trying to think of attacking players who've actually signed. Willian's easy. Trossard came in, cool. Yeah, man. That's actually a great point that I didn't consider, you know, really and truly. I'm trying to think. Why do you think that is down to then? Like, why do you think there's been a reluctance to sign attacking players since you mentioned it, if that is the case?
So I don't know whether it's a reluctance or if it's his style of play is that he wants to use what he's got and he's happy with what he's got. I mean, let's be real. You're going to be happy with Saka or Martinelli. I think Trossard is a great signing. He's been happy with Reece Nelson for some reason. I do quite like Reece when he comes on, but I'm not so sure he's ready to take us to that.
He's not going to move the needle, yeah.
Yeah, we've already seen problems with Emil Smith-Rowe, but you can understand why he's kept him and not replaced him. Maybe he might do in the summer. That's a different debate. And up top, I think with Gabriel Jesus, he's everything that he wanted in a striker in terms of the press, the false 9 position, can score goals, but also can link up play and set up goals as well.
Facts.
So I don't think Mikel Arteta has seen a need for it yet, but I do think we will potentially in January or in the summer, and I think we need to, you know. There's talk on Vlahovic. For me, I'd rather Toney because he's Premier League proven. Ollie Watkins is a mention from a lot of people. I think he's going to be quite a lot, and I'm not so sure that he will take us to a title level, but I could be wrong. And then, of course, Vlahovic is a risk because he's coming to a different league and he's not really on form. He has scored, I think, 6 in 10, but I think 2 of those were a brace in 2 of those games. So I do feel personally like Ivan Toney is the guy. But again, it's money. You know, no one understands quite financially where Arsenal are at. There's a lot of rumours that FFP are sniffing around a lot of clubs at the moment and Arsenal being mentioned as one that's safe. But I don't know how safe we are. If we were to go and spend another 100 million on Toney in January, perhaps we wouldn't be safe. So I need to understand the finances better. I'm not a maths guy at all, so it's not my strength. But for me, in terms of a striker, if we don't get one in January, we must get one in the summer. And it has to be a proper striker. It can't be a player like a Jonathan David who can come on and be a risk. It's got to be an Osimhen or a Ivan Toney or Ollie Watkins or maybe even Evan Ferguson from Brighton who deserves a lot of game time for me because I'm a big fan of what I'm seeing from him. It needs to be somebody like that who we think, yeah, we're excited about. Not something coming in going, might as well just keep Jesus and Eddie. It needs to be like, boom, you're the number 1 striker.
I think you're bang on the money. I think January, admittedly, bro, I'm very pessimistic on a striker because on one hand, I do feel if you're mid-season and we're pushing and as you know, a player can come in, he scores us 20 goals or anything close, or let's just say he gets 10, but those 10 are decisive goals, then we're laughing, really. I just think we will do that in the summer, kind of what you alluded to. I don't know for the FFP. I just think, and rightly so to a degree, for me, the priority has to be midfield. I do think, you know, right wing, competition for Saka, up front and centre mid, they're all of equal importance. You really should should go out and do all. But I just not convinced with our midfield options. As you said earlier, Declan Rice, he's got on like a house on fire. The man is quality. Unfortunately, he's not Superman as much as he plays like that. Anything happens to him, we're in issues. Obviously, you look at Jorginho, El Nene, and Partey's age. They're on the wrong side of 30, and they're all delicate situations. So for me, I think we need to go in midfield. I won't quite say we can't improve on what we can do with our attacking players or our defensive players, and I won't quite say I'm happy, but I think we can get through. Centre mid, I'm very pessimistic. I like Jorginho, but as you said earlier, with every game that he plays well, and I think he's done better than I thought, you're kind of signing up for them Spurs games where the game's open, he's going to make mistakes. And as much as I like Arteta, there's certain players, like I think we do this thing, even with Zinchenko and Jesus, we take good squad players that are good, but we put them in boots that are too big to fill. Like Jesus can't, until he can get goals, you know, I don't think he can be the difference maker, the maverick of sort. And I feel harsh saying that about Jesus because he's a lovely player, his intensity, his mentality. We'll be here all day talking about Jesus, but I share your thoughts on the striker. I think Ivan Toney's the most attainable, maybe not in January, but he's got 18 months left on his deal, new agents, he's angling for a move. Vlahovic, I share your opinion in that. The only thing I can mark against his name is that you come to the Prem, I don't know if the currency, if the exchange rate is right, but on the basis of Mikel Arteta wanted him, and to be fair, he did want Havertz, and that's not working out, bro. But yeah, like surely the scouting means something really where Vlahovic is concerned, and he's also 23. Osimhen would be my pick, but you'd imagine everybody scrambling for that one in the summer. Everyone's putting their hat in the ring, and I do think a bit like the goalkeeper market in the summer, the striker market, it probably needs one domino to fall, and then everything else falls into place. I agree with you in that. I don't think Tony necessarily makes us go up a level when we're really, you know, giving it the big one that we can defeat City, but his mentality, the fact that he gets goals, the fact that I think he fits the system. I wouldn't say he's my first choice, but he's definitely not my last. I would love the Osimhens and them kind of guys. Tony would be all right for me, if I'm honest. On the topic of strikers, I'm sure, you know, being a content creator, being an Arsenal man in, you know, in your group chats and whatnot, you've probably seen these Gabriel Jesus comments. What have you made of it, people, my guy? Because for me, I think it shows people ain't got comprehension skills, because I don't like it, but when you go and read what he said, he hasn't said anything wrong. And I know we don't want to hear Jesus say that, but we've been saying this about Jesus since he's played for our club. So surely it shows self-awareness. But what's your thoughts on them Gabby comments, man?
Yeah, he's had a bit of a stinker, really. And I think the reason he's had a stinker is because he's been too honest, because everything he said is actually facts.
Yeah, you have
everything about his game is fantastic, but he's not a 30 goal a season striker. And that's basically all he said in the comments. The problem is you can't say that. There's being honest and there's being stupid. And for me, I think he's gone towards the being stupid. Now, to start with, I thought perhaps it was a lost in translation situation. And I read the comments, and they did highlight the bit that he said, like 3 words, which said, I am a crap striker, in the words of effect of, which is not what he meant whatsoever, right?
Exactly.
But for me, when you're talking about a clinical goal scorer, nobody thinks of Gabriel Jesus. But actually, there's been many strikers over the time that will look at that and think, this guy's so important to the team. And I think Jesus is like that. Firmino is another one at Liverpool. Very, very similar. You know, he wasn't clinical in front of goal. He didn't get 40 goals a season, but he was so pivotal to what Salah and Mane wanted to do.
Part of their squad. He's like the glue almost.
And I think, you know, if I was to liken a front three of what Arsenal could be, I see more of Liverpool's old front three of that. Firmino, Salah and Mane in Saka, Martinelli and Jesus. Potentially, they're nowhere near that level yet, but I think that they could be that in the next couple of years if we stick with it. But if we do go and get that striker, then obviously that will change things there. If we got a killer, absolute killer in the box, that's great. But how many are out there, bro? How many are out there?
This is the thing, you're scratching your head.
Know, it's difficult, man. But with Gabby Jesus, I think he's spoken a little bit too much there. I think it would have been fine for him to say, in a nutshell, I can score goals and I want to prove to you that I can score goals. At the moment, I need to improve on that and need to make sure that I'm clinical in front of goal. I don't think anyone would care about it. What I won't have is that because he's now said, I'm not that great in front of goal, like in a nutshell, people are now saying, no, this guy's not good enough. You know, I was on the stream yesterday, people are saying, yeah, see, this is why Arsenal ain't going to win nothing. They've got people like that in their team. Mate, he's the reason we were part of a title challenge.
He's got like 7 or 11 trophies. People can't winning stuff. It's not a weak point of Gabriel Jesus. Like.
Bizarre, man. Bizarre. But listen, you know, at the end of the day, Man City, they replaced him because they wanted better. They had Aguero and Haaland that are ahead of him. And if Arsenal have to do the same to win a title, that's football.
I think that's the perfect role for Jesus. I think he'd be a key player for me, play plenty of games. He'd get plenty of game time up front, maybe on the wing, depending on Martinelli and Saka. But I just don't think you're the go-to man. You're a bagsman. I don't know why he hasn't scored goals, because Jesus is an enigma. Like when you hear Pep, the national team gaffers, Arteta, they praise him rightly so for all the things that he does, but nobody praises him for being a goal scorer. And I am with a couple of these players. Obviously, Wenger used to say 27, 28, 29. That's when strikers come to their peak. He's 26. Now, at some point, I'm thinking, the penny will drop and he'll improve. But, I don't think Gabriel Jesus doesn't want to score goals. Obviously, he's been around some of the best coaches and he's 26 years of age now. There's not going to be too much of an uptake in that. Of course, you could be more clinical. So do we accept him for what he is? Kind of do what Manchester City done with him and also Zinchenko, and that you're key players. You play for us all the time, but you're not necessarily the go-to men to the Aguero levels and things. And I agree with your analogy about Liverpool with Firmino, Salah and Mane, but that's where I feel a bit sorry for Martinelli and Saka. Ultimately, you lot are doing well, so the expectations come, but we're expecting a lot of players that are an anomaly. Like, how many players in their early 20s are playing week in, week out and being the go-to men? Definitely with Saka. You look at Phil Foden, not to knock him because he's a quality player, take him at the Emirates, but how different would it look like if he couldn't be afforded to not perform? If Saka doesn't perform, typically we don't get 3 points. At City, it's not that you can coast, but you look to the left and right, there's a whole bunch of star players. So I think he'll bang on the money. I do think he's probably a bit too honest. I mean, some fans will sit there and say, where Ramsdale's concerned, we've got a keeper that mentions he can't concentrate. We've got a left back who said defend is not a strong point. And now we've got Gabi Jesus. It's quite scary, really and truly. But ultimately, he's wearing the number 9. He's got to do the job. Like, the whole carrot of you signing for Arsenal was you do that Gabriel Jesus stuff, but now you've got a platform of importance to score goals. And why do you think it is? Like, with Jesus, I think I said this on your stream, it's like the easy chances are very difficult. The difficult chances he makes look easy. Like, why is that a case for you with Jesus? If it is a case, like, why do you think he hasn't got that knack of scoring goals and being a natural goal scorer? Because he's got the ability to do it, but it ain't happened.
Listen, the first thing he's got to do is stay fit, because that doesn't help him.
That too, yeah.
You get to a run of games of, say, 10, and then he gets a knock. And in those 10, he might score 6 and create 3. And then people will say, oh, he's on fire. And then he won't play for another 3 months.
And then you start again, yeah.
Then you start again. And then that 10 games has now become 30 games. You've only scored 6 goals. So people go, oh, he's only scored 6 in 30. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to be looking at when he's actually on the pitch. But I do think that he has delivered in certain seasons for Manchester City. Everybody was really harsh when they said, oh, Man City won the league without a striker. No. They won the league with Gabriel Jesus. He was their guy. Do you know what I'm saying? So Aguero went, and then Jesus was the guy. Of course, they went and got Haaland. Who wouldn't? But Gabriel Jesus was great for Man City, and he was loved by Man City fans. And I know a lot of City fans that said to me, trust me, Dan, you'll love him. Absolutely fan favourite. He'll be 100% pressing.
Body on the line for the cause, man. Lovely guy.
Of course, man. And I can't fault him at that. Where I do get frustrated is he'll go through 1-on-1 and he'll balloon it over the bar. One out of 3, he'll put it out over the bar. He'll go through and he'll do what he did against Spurs, but then the next time he'll go through and he did what he did at the Emirates against Man United, where he just sends Johnny Evans like this, or Dalot, was it? Just keeps spinning. So
rumors say he's still sliding, mate.
There you go. He's still sliding. So you've got those two. That just sums up, those 2 chances sum up Gabriel Jesus. You go through, and that was probably the easier one, the Spurs one, because he had no one around him. He's just got to slot it home. He puts it over the bar and loses his concentration. Then he keeps his cool and composure, and he puts it away. And that's the difference with Gabriel Jesus. We need to see more of the Man United style finishes than the Tottenham ones. And if he can get that right, let's remember he's a 25-year-old guy. He's not like he's 30 and finished. He's still going to be learning every day, and he's still going to want to improve. So I don't think that we can look at a comment and then go, right, you're finished, let's replace you. I do think we need to, but I don't think we need to replace him because of those comments. I'm worried about his injury problems, and I do think we can get somebody more clinical.
The injury problems are what concerns me as well, because obviously, there's some context behind it. He got one at the World Cup and he played on with an injury against Chelsea. I mean, in the Champions League. But in terms of his playing style, he is going to pick up knocks. And I think, all us Arsenal fans say it. You look at Partey. Obviously, Timbers had his first big career injury. It's like players never get injured at previous clubs. They come Arsenal. And yeah, I don't know what's going on in that regards. For me, with Jesus, I think he's got to concentrate on scoring the tap-ins. Like you said, Jesus hasn't scored many for Arsenal Football Club, but there's very few of them that aren't fantastic team goals or fantastic finishes. I think, where you look at strikers, look at Haaland, he's an anomaly, but still, a lot of his goals are not glamorous. The vast majority of his goals are not glamorous. And I'm not using that to knock him. You score 17 to 20 plus tap-ins, you're making a difference for your team. And I don't know what it is with Jesus, because you've been surrounded by players in Brazil that are more natural finishers. You've had the best coaches. Jesus doesn't strike me as a person that as soon as training's done, he's going to leave. So I don't know why it isn't happening. And at this point, I've just come to accept that this is the Jesus, in it. We need to just do what City do with him. You can play, you're a key player. If you score, that's a bonus, but probably need a more of a season goal scorer. Where are you at with Eddie Nketiah then?
Eddie Nketiah could have a place in this squad by all means, but he does not. We can't have him as a striker, man. As a starter. For me, I think that Eddie Nketiah is perfect when there's absolutely no pressure on him whatsoever. So Sheffield United, go do your thing, hat trick. League Cup against Sunderland, go do your thing, hat trick. League Cup against Norwich, bounces on the scene, bursts onto the scene with two-headed goals. Next minute, he's the next Ian Wright. So when there's no pressure on Eddie Nketiah, it's fine. But when you go through a run, DG, of 30 games and you've scored 4 goals, I've got a problem with that. And a lot of people don't like to see the stats. They don't like to always, we're not a stats man, we're not a stats man. Do you know what? I'm not a stats man, but I'm a stats man when it comes into form. When it comes into poor form, I don't care how much XG you've got. If you scored a hat trick, I don't care if the XG is good.
Oh, the XG.
Right? I don't give a damn, right? I don't give a damn how much pressing or running you've done. I care about your performance on the pitch. And when you're going through a long run of games where you're not scoring goals, that's poor. So when I look back to when Eddie Nketiah scored for the first time this season, I looked at his last goal. It was Manchester United at the Emirates when we won 3-2 and he scored the winner at the end, which was back in January or February of last year. So, of this year, sorry. So literally going back almost a year to when he last scored. You can't be doing him with that. So if he wants to be a third choice striker at Arsenal and stay, fine by me. He won't want that. He'll have to go and get first team football. Go and play for Palace, Brentford, Wolves. You might even be able to get in the Brighton side. I don't know at one stage in life, but they change a lot of their strikers around. But he ain't going to be for Arsenal as a number one. And that's maybe harsh reality. But for me, I would have sold him and I would have upgraded him. I actually would have preferred to see Balogun than Eddie Nketiah, who's still scoring over at Monaco, by the way. So we didn't see that. He put him on 100K a week. He gave him the number 14 shirt. And unfortunately, if you can't stand the heat, you've got to get out of the kitchen. And I don't think Eddie Nketiah is ready, man.
And I think that's like, as much as I've got time for Arteta, I don't back him blindlessly. I think right now, until I see anything differently, you're the guy. But this is what my gripe with Arteta, in that it's almost like, Pep's coming out here with Mac 10s and these crazy guns, and we've got a blunt knife, really. It's like, at this point, I don't look at Eddie. It's like, I think, obviously, I still think you can improve. Strikers peak later. One thing I'll give Eddie is I think his mentality, a lot of players could learn a lot from him. And I do think he's a late bloomer. But I do feel, like you said, if we're trying to win significant honours or challenge for them sooner rather than later, at this moment in time, I think he's hit his peak. I think this is as good as it's going to get, really and truly. You're not prolific enough. You're fairly limited. I don't quite buy into the notion of you kill our general playing stuff, but when Trossard's up front and you got Saka and Martinelli or Jesus or any combinations of the three, we're a lot more fluid, we're a lot more threatening. Things that them players do in 1 or 2 touch, Eddie might take 3-4. So I just think Eddie Nketiah's hit his ceiling, and I'm with you in that, dependent on if we sign a striker and or a winger. I'm not saying you can't keep these guys around. As you can see, we need a big squad, but you and Reece Nelson, probably it's looking like that time where you're kind of going to get phased out unless there's significance. And I just think when you marry the eyes and the stats, like you said, Eddie Nketiah isn't prolific. And again, I'm not even trying to attack these players. If we're trying to fight City, they've got a proven goal scorer and proven bagsman in and around the team. Now, we've got a young team developing. We know Jesus isn't prolific. We're surprised if Eddie bags, with respect to Eddie Nketiah. There's too many questions rather than answers. And I agree with you where Eddie Nketiah is concerned. I will say, though, despite who plays up front, I don't think we're creating enough for them, if I'm completely honest. Like, they're snatching at half chances. So where you at with Trossard as a false 9? Is that something you want to see for a minute now? Or with Jesus being back for Brazil, is it a case of Jesus against Brentford, he's back in and business as usual?
Well, I would start Trossard against Brentford and bring on Jesus. 90 minutes has kind of not been a pleasant return back for him, in my opinion. So I would continue with Trossard because I think it's our best option there when Jesus is out. I really don't see Eddie, Havertz or Martinelli through the middle as a better option than Trossard, because when I see Trossard play there, he brings a lot more to the game that people don't see. And I think Saka and Martinelli's game is risen by that. So I'm going to stick with Trossard. And then Jesus, of course, will start there eventually. And Trossard will go back to bench and he'll come on and be an impact sub, which, to be fair, is what he's done very, very well at. So I'm all good for Trossard to be continuing in that position. where my kind of frustrations lie is, as you just said, the service towards them, because I do think that we're lacking a little bit in the midfield creativity wise. I think Rice has been phenomenal, but he's not a creator. I think when Partey's there, he's a beast and a destroyer, but he's not a creator. And Martin Odegaard hasn't really been on form this season so far.
Since the last international break, he's really dropped off, if I'm honest. And I'm
he
a big
has,
fan
man.
of him.
And that will, listen, I'm a big fan. That will come back. The 100%. He's too good to be rubbish throughout the season to continue. Where I think the downfall has been is when he is out, we've got nothing. We've still got nothing. And Smith Rowe's injured. Vieira's not quite ready. Havertz has not been great, been a disappointment. And we spent a lot of money in that position. You know, if you had Odegaard's money together with Vieira's and Havertz, and you look at what Smith Rowe would be available, talking about hundreds of millions of pounds worth there, and none of them can quite get it right. So Odegaard for me is the maestro when he gets it when he gets it going. But back up there, I wanted James Maddison. Nobody else seemed to be keen. They all wanted.
You're not alone with that.
I just wanted him badly, man, because this would have been perfect now. I know that he's injured now, yeah, but so is Odegaard. So Odegaard's injured, you have Maddison there, don't you? You know what I'm saying? And then they can play them both together in the attacking eights and have Rice holding or Partey holding, whatever it be. There's options there. So This is where we've got to be thinking now. The mindset of Arsenal is not, oh, but if he comes in, someone else misses out. Because when we went unbeaten, DG, in Highbury, I wasn't feeling sorry for Cardiff or Wiltord because Henry and Berg were in front of them. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't frustrated that we didn't see much of Ray Parlour.
Your time will come.
Was killing it on the wing. Your time would come. They all contributed that season. And to be fair, we should have won more than just the Premier League because we're the best team in Europe, in my opinion. So I feel that that's what we've got to be looking at now moving forward. But the lack of creativity has been an issue. But I'd have Trossard through the middle and then Jesus coming back into the mix when he's 100% fit.
I'm with you with that, in that I am tempted to start Jesus against Brentford, and I'm no physio man or anything, but you're traveling back from Brazil, so it's a quick turnaround. You know, you ain't played in a hot minute and you got 90 minutes, I believe. I want you to stay fit, really and truly. And, you know, I also feel at times in the season, and City do it great, when a player's in a real purple patch, I won't quite say Trossard's in that, but they're in a real good run of form. Sometimes I think you need to play on that. And if it's not broke, don't necessarily fix it. And I think Trossard deserves to play. I wish we could play 12 players because I do think Trossard is quite unlucky in that in his positions when everyone's fit. You've got Jesus, Saka, and obviously Martinelli. So it is a bit of a techie one, if I'm completely honest with you, man. Completely off topic here, but give me your top 3 players so far and your top 3 underperformers. I'm pretty sure of one of the underperformers, and it sets us up nicely for a second part of this.
Top 3. Okay, that's easy for me. The top 3, our best 3 players have been Declan Rice, William Saliba,
easy,
and Gabriel. I'm
so happy you said Gabriel because he doesn't get the praise he deserves, man.
Yeah, he's so underrated. I understand why he doesn't get spoken about enough because the guy next to him is an absolute monster, right? But when you look at what Gabriel does, you'd probably put the word monster more towards Gabriel than you would William Saliba.
A lot of what he does is so Saliba can thrive and look gracious and all these things, not 100%. Taking anything away from Saliba. It's a great partnership.
100%, bro. And, you know, Gabriel's performance has complemented Saliba, but what you've got to remember is that Saliba's performances have complemented Gabriel because he's quite rash at times, Gabriel, and he's been known to be like the bozo gene, they call it, whatever. But for me, we haven't seen much of that of late because both players have improved. And I think when you look at what Gabriel does, Saliba's been able to come through his game, but that calming presence that Saliba has allows Gabriel to be the monster that he is.
It's like good cop, bad cop.
It really is, man. There's a compliment for each other. And I think it's the best partnership in the Premier League. I really do. I think it's more of a partnership in terms of complementing each other than Diaz and Stones. Some would say Diaz and Stones is better. And some might even say individually that Diaz and Vardy will probably be the 2 best in the world in the next few years. But for me, I look at what Gabriel and Saliba have done in the past couple of seasons, maybe 18 months. I've been so impressed, man. So impressed. So
kept Haaland quiet, man. That deserves a lot of praise.
Yeah, exactly that. So those are the 3 that I would say that I've definitely impressed. In terms of the ones that have underperformed, very, very difficult to pick this, but I will go with Havertz as number 1 because that's an obvious reason. I just think he's been a disappointment, to be honest. And the other 2 players that I'll go with. He was brilliant in the last game, but it's the only game he's had this season. Zinchenko. I don't know what's happened to him, but he's not been getting in ahead of Tomiyasu, rightly so. He's been probably underperforming this season. And then it is literally a flip of a coin for me between Ben White and Odegaard, I think. because
I'd
Ben
go
White has
Odegaard, you
had
know.
okay games and not great games. Odegaard's kind of disappointed, and he's disappointed and disappeared in big games already this season. Spurs, Man City, those type of games where you think, where are you? Like, where are
That's
you? Are
where
you
we need our
actually here?
Capitano, yeah.
We need you. Where's your captain? And he keeps getting hooked and subbed. Like, I don't know a captain Arsenal have had that gets subbed so much in my life. Like Vieira never got subbed. Do you know what I mean? So yeah,
Especially in
I
them
would
crunch time
probably
moments, yeah.
so I'd probably go Havertz, Zinchenko, and Odegaard, bro.
Do you know what? I mean, Havertz is top three performers. It's techie, really and truly. But I'd go Saliba, Rice, and I'm gonna try to think of a different one. Saliba, Rice. Do you know what? I'll go Trossard of late, man. I think since he's got his chances, he'll take it. I don't want to say the typical ones. Underperformers, as you said, Kai Havertz. I would say Odegaard just because you've set high expectations and you're an absolute baller and you haven't quite been off the boil. The last one is where it gets a bit techie. Do you know what? I'd say for me, Fabio Vieira, because Fabio Vieira, I like you a lot, but you're kind of on the Smith Rowe, Eddie and Nketiah thing in that couple of games you play out of this world. And every night, like the last 2 seasons, Fabio Vieira, there's a time where he really looks good. And then it's time to start starting games. Like I'm sure he started the derby against Spurs and you just flatter to deceive. And it's now where I want to see you put down a marker, because the reality is you can play as an 8. That's a position that they've just rightly or wrongly spent 65 million on Havertz, and we would probably like a few more. You're not playing ahead of Odegaard regardless because he's the captain, and we all know you're not a right winger. But the position you play in is congested, and there's other options. So I need you to put down a marker. If I'm honest with you, would you say Arsenal have any world-class players?
Not yet. No. I did a debate on my channel about world class the other day, and in terms
That's
of the
why I asked.
definition of it, I don't feel like there is a world class player at Arsenal yet. I feel like we've got potential to be. I think there's probably a few players that could get to the world class talent when you look at the end of their career, but certainly now most of them are at the start of it. I think Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, and Saliba are the ones that stand out for me that could have a world class bracket put against their name one day. I look at Rice and think potentially as well, but I do think the one that could get there the quickest is Saliba, because I don't know many right now that are at his age in that bracket. I couldn't name more than maybe 2 or 3 centre halves that are better than him in world football, and that's hard. Whereas I could probably debate the others. You know, you can talk about Rodri's over Rice, you could talk about Salah's over Saka's and Mbappe's over Martinelli's, but I don't know that I can talk too many over Saliba. You know, I think Diaz and Milicia, and obviously people still talk about Van Dijk, Gvardiol, they can all be mentioned, but I don't think they're levels above Saliba. I really don't. So I'm gonna stick my neck on the line and say that I think he's the one that people will be talking about the most in the next coming 5 years. I think Saliba is just, I've not seen anything like it, bro. Like I'm 21 years old,
Absolute monster.
Yeah, probably Rio is the last time I looked at someone at 21 and thought, wow, you're different gravy. It's been that long, man.
I don't know, man, because I agree with you. I think, firstly, I think this world-class thing, everybody judges it through different lenses and stuff. And I think this whole world-class shout is very subjective. I agree with you in that I don't think we have a world-class player in this squad. And that's not me criticizing them. I think kind of the names you said, I think, you know what? I think Saliba and Rice would be the ones I'd bet on, because I just think Rice is very close, because he's done it for years in this 6th role. Obviously, I think you'll see the somewhat number 8 version of Declan Rice next season, because he's had a year under it. I think Declan Rice is bread and butter in that role. I weren't calling him this at West Ham, I must admit, but I think there's that. I can't lie. I agree with the Saliba shout. I think with Saliba, it's just a case of body of work. You just got to do it for years. If there's any injuries, God forbid, to Gabriel, you got to prove you can thrive. You've probably got to get in the French setup and thrive. And it's just about those fine margins that aren't necessarily highlighted, or Saliba's flaws, minus flaws that are not necessarily highlighted at Arsenal. I think Odegaard's got the gullet in his locker, but as you said, you've got to just do it every week. I think in terms of hunger, I might say Martinelli, because I haven't really seen a young player in Arsenal's team that's hungry like him. I think his mentality to want to be better. I don't think he's Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, but I think he's got that ilk in him. And who else is there? Saka, arguably. I think Saka just like I said, it's a body of work. You just got to keep doing what you're doing. You've been, a couple of these players have been nominated in PFAs, Ballon d'Or nominations. I personally think Saka is top 5 right winger in the world. Critics will say there's not really many. Saka can't help when his mum and dad decided to have sex and him to come into this world. So there's nothing he could do about that. So yeah, if I had to bet on it, I'd say Saliba be the one. If there's anyone that's close right now, I'd probably say Declan Rice, because I think he's closer to fulfilling what we would want to see from that sort of world-class number 6. Saka isn't far behind, so it's a techie one, really and truly, man. It is a very interesting debate, man. You know, obviously, you know, that's a decent topic. Kai Havertz, man, like, I don't think there's any much you could say that any other Arsenal fan don't agree. But where you at with Kai Havertz? Do you ever see it working out? You know, can you rationalize why Mikel Arteta might have brought him to the club?
Unfortunately, this is the part where I do become very negative, bro, because there's nothing.
No, it's being honest. Like, because if he was scoring 20 goals, we'd be singing his praises. Like,
yeah, facts, bro, and I wish he was. I'm kind of done with him, DG, because I've seen enough to know that this player is actually not as great as people have given him credit for. We saw a talent out in Bayern Leverkusen, but that was 4 years ago. It wasn't 4 months
the Bayern Leverkusen days.
Yeah, you know, people are already watching his compilation goals and thinking, where's this player gone? All the Chelsea fans did that. They all did that as well. We're now copying them, going, where is this player gone? Yep. Everybody thought Mikel Arteta could get the best out of him and that he was misunderstood and mistreated at Chelsea. Maybe he was just a poor footballer, or maybe that's what he is. I've decided that. I don't think it's a good signing. I think it's a lot of money. I think Chelsea are howling. I think we have well overspent on the players that we could have got instead of him, like Kudus, Maddison, Szoboszlai, even Alexis McAllister, Moussa Diaby. They were all cheaper than this guy. I would actually
Douglas
say
Luiz in the summer probably could have got you that, inflated or not, but 65 million, I don't think Villa would have said no. Like, there's plenty of, even though he ain't played Lavia as well, who is linked with, you're bang on the money, Dan, man.
Yeah, listen, I think when you look at what we could have got, sometimes it's easy to do that, isn't it? Oh, we could have got this guy. We could have got this guy.
Hindsight's lovely.
Xhaka and Mustafi, and we could have a Van Dijk and Kante, for the same money. Everybody does that.
Don't make me cry, man.
Everybody does that, bro, you know? So the problem I've got is this was kind of staring every single football manager in the face, and R1 decided to go, we'll have him. And everybody went, no, we'll take Maddison. Villa said, no, we'll take Diaby. West Ham said, no, we'll take Kudus. I just feel like it's frustrating to have that player at the club that we kind of don't have a position for. That's a lot of money. That's on the highest wages. That's still being kind of given confidence boosts and given penalties to try and give him a lift. I don't want to be seeing that when we're going for a title. I don't mind when you're just starting up and you've just come to the club and you say, look, we all need a confidence lift. The club's on the ground. Players are going to be on the ground. But this guy, for me, I don't really see the love that he's getting from potential some of the fans who are just looking at it and not wanting to see what they are
blind
seeing.
Optimism.
It is optimism now. It's hope, not belief. Just please do something, Kai. Oh, he's headed the ball. Brilliant. That was fantastic.
He's tackled someone.
Every single time everybody watches Match of the Day, they'll see Saka deliver a pass, Martinelli deliver a pass. They'll sit quiet. And Havertz will get the ball and they'll flick it like that and they'll go, did anyone see that? Can I just pause it a minute? Can you just come and have a look at this guy head the ball? What is going on here? Like, this is mad. So I don't think the guy's going to make it at the club. I do think that it's early days, but it's starting to become an excuse that you can't use much more when you've had 13 games. And he's been given a hell of a chance. He's one of the last players to get subbed off. He's one of the first to be brought in when someone gets injured. This guy is getting more of an opportunity than Smith Rowe and Reece Nelson and even Fabio Vieira, who's actually contributed at least in the last few months. I think Kai Havertz has been given a very easy ride so far at Arsenal, and it's not working for him, man. So I've kind of decided this one's done.
I think with me, with Havertz, I'm agreeing with you in that until I see something, I can't be hopeful in that. You know, you play for Arsenal Football Club. I'll always support you. I want you to do well. But as you said, if we're trying to improve, I don't see how Kai Havertz improves us at this moment in time. Like, when we was linked with him, I could see in the summer, I saw what Timber could bring. Whether Raya versus Ramsdale's another debate, but you could see in theory why Raya was brought. Declan Rice, the less said, the better. He's a quality player. With Kai Havertz, it was, you know what? I'm not really confident in this. I know you're not a miracle worker, Arteta, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, because in the last 2 years, including last year, the hits to miss ratio has been a lot better. With Kai Havertz now, I do feel like he's a bit of a charity case. Like you said, if you was fresh to the league or you've just come through the academy and you're trying to learn, I've got that for you. But, you know, in your late 20s, mid to late 20s now, German international, Champions League winner, as you said, trying to get closer to City, that's where my luxuries run out. And it's not even really Havertz, because I look at the gaffer now, as we said on your channel, but for me, it's just a hole in midfield. It's like, since we've come to this Emirates Stadium, It's like we love being a couple pennies short of a pound. We get a striker, we ain't got a DM. We got a 10, we got no DM, but we've got a striker. We're just always a couple of players short from something. And I can't see what Havertz, brings to the table. I do think in the last few games he's been okay, but in relation to in general, I think the bar is on the floor. The bar is in hell. Anytime we're praising players for working hard or making tackles, we're in very dangerous territory. That's the only luxury I'll give Havertz, in fact, in that off the ball with what Arteta wants, you can do that. But if we brought you for off the ball, it's not like it's a Mesut Ozil thing. You're just doing what a competent footballer or somewhat competent footballer should be doing. And there's no getaway clause. We signed Fabio Vieira for 30 million. You can kind of live with that L if it is an L. Kai Havertz, we saved Chelsea from that. They probably couldn't believe their luck when we bidded 65 million. And I don't think Kovacic would have solved all our problems, but I'm a big fan of his. And when it became available, he was available to leave Chelsea. I would have been more happy with that because he's a midfielder. You could see him with Rice. There's a use. I said it on your channel. I have to say it again. You speak to 10 Arsenal fans, they're all going to say different things with Kai Havertz. Whatever position they think he is, whether that's a 10, left-sided, 8-sided, or false 9, where is he in the squad? Like, is he the best in that position? Is he one of the best in the league? Where are we at with it? And that's one where I don't look at the player. As you said, we saw it at Chelsea. I'm sure you got Chelsea supporting friends. They literally, say they told us these things are going to happen. So the only thing I'll give Havertz is it's a couple of months into what I hope is a positive long-term Arsenal career. But apart from that, it's brazy, man. My next question for you, as I've got written here, obviously, apparently it's Mikel Arteta's 200th game in charge of us. What's your feelings on the manager and if he's the right man to move us forward?
Well, obviously, I'm still not convinced that this guy's the right guy to take us to a title. I think he's done a phenomenal job off the pitch. I think when you go to the Emirates now, it's a nice place to be. He's taken the club to a level where it was pretty much in a toxic state and on the ground. And I think now you can look at the place and think, wow, he deserves a lot of credit for that. Where I have question marks still is his stuff on the pitch and his in-game management. I think some of the signings he's brought in have been great. I think some of them have been bad. We've seen that already. We've just had a discussion about one of them. I think people sometimes brush over the ones that haven't worked out. I'm not saying that you should get 100% of your signings right. Some of them just don't work out in football, right? But when you look at it, he's probably only got maybe 60% of them correct and 40% have been poor. Because when you look at Runnison and Matt Taylor...
Probably the recent ones as well.
Yeah, when you look at Runnison and Matt Turner, and when you look at the likes of Lokonga and Tavares, Cedric and Marie, and then you look at what's happened with Willian and then Ceballos when he got him back, which was weird. There's been some problems, man. And of course, you look at keeping Holding for that long. El Neni's still here, Jorginho coming in. Then you've got Nelson and Eddie that's been put on these long-term contracts. Kai Havertz has come in and been signed. It's strange, man. There's a lot of doubt on that. But the ones that have worked are great. I like Ramsdale still. Ben White's been great. Obviously, Gabriel's been a really good player. Partey, when fit, is outstanding. And Erdegaard as well. So, there's been Tommy Asu, I'd say, is another one you can add on that list. I think he's a good squad player as well. But other than that, he's kind of like stuck with the youth players, or he's stuck with Emery signings in like Martinelli and Saliba, for example, and Saka and Smith Rowe coming through. But yeah, I think there's been probably 7 or 8 that have been W's and the rest of them have been L's. Fabio Vieira, Kai Havertz can be added to that list as well. In terms of where he's at this season, I think he has to win something. I can't be this. We've had a successful season. Oh, brilliant. What did you win? Nothing. Oh, that's not a successful season then.
We are out of one cup now.
We're out of one cup. The one cup that we were favourites to win, we're out of. The other 3, we ain't favourites to win it. Listen, I believe there's context for how we go out of cups. If we lose to Manchester City on the last day of the season,
hold your hands up.
Premier League title, fair play to you, Mikel. You've almost got there. If you get to a Champions League final when Real Madrid or Bayern Munich knock you out, fair play to you, Mikel. You got to a Champions League final. You get to an FA Cup final and you quite just about lose it at the last minute of the game against Liverpool or City, I'm cool. But if you get dumped out of a Carabao Cup to West Ham, that's one thing. But if we now lose to a Brentford or a Leicester City in the FA Cup playing kids, and then we go out to Porto in the last 16 of the Champions League and we come third, what happens then? I think questions have to be asked about where we're headed, because this process is done. £700 million is spent. This is your team now, not Unai Emery or Arsene Wenger's. Go win something, man.
I agree with you in that. I've got a lot of time for Arteta, but how he navigates things is a bit techie. I don't think we learned from our mistakes the season we lost out to top 4 to Spurs, when we kind of bottled it at the end of it for last season. And it goes back to what we said at the start. I think one problem for Arteta, as much as I like him, is sometimes I think he takes players. I don't think there's a bad player, but maybe Kai Havertz, but I don't think there's a bad player in the Arsenal team. It's just when you're trying to fight for major honours and these players have to play more often than the couple of games, you have to judge them differently. And it's Arteta who's assembled them. I'd say that's one of my biggest pet peeves. And also, since we've won the FA Cup, I haven't liked how we've exited it. It's not just him, but I think how we've navigated the Europa League. You know, when a couple of years ago, I'm sure he played Smith Rowe against Villarreal as a false nine. Last year, obviously, it went down to penalties in the second leg or something like that. But for me, the job was the damage was done in the first leg. And I think those naiveties, ultimately, I can't just blame the manager, but a team is a reflection of the manager. So he's going to have to hold that. I agree with you in that, you know, I'd love to sit here and say, I believe we're going to win the Prem or the Champs, but I think the FA Cup is a big target. That's our trophy, as you've once said as well. You know, we need to bring that home. Champions League, of course, I'd like to get into a final and get to the latter stages. As you said, context, if you buck up against these great teams, you match yourselves, you go out, there's no shame in that. The Premier League is where I am going to be quite critical of Arteta, because as great as City are, you know, on the face of it, we lost to a City team that won the treble, generational, all of that jazz. But we crumbled. I think every Arsenal fan knows in their heart that we had that Premier League title in our hands and we bottled it. So something needs to be done. And that was an opportunity of a lifetime. As you said, Liverpool are hitting back. City always going to improve. Chelsea are going to get it together sooner rather than later, unfortunately. The only one you could probably rule out for the next 2 years, unless a madness happens, is probably Man United. And they're a club that should be fighting. So the competition is only going to get worse. So I do think we have to, I want to win the FA Cup and stuff like that. And I do think there has to be evident improvement, man. So it's a bit of a techie one. I can't have you here without speaking about Aaron Ramsdale. Obviously, he's set to play against Brentford. I'm sure you've seen what his dad has said. Where are you at with Aaron Ramsdale as a footballer? Where are you at with David Raya against Aaron Ramsdale? And what do you make of Ramsdale's dad's comments?
Well, listen, I speak to Nick quite a lot when I go to away games, and I speak to him when I see him, and he's one of the nicest guys you'll speak to. He's really proud of his son, and so is Caroline, his mum. The pair of them are really, really proud, and so they should be, man. He's done a phenomenal job. And I think he's speaking from the heart. Now, I listened to the whole podcast because I know Sophie and Kev went on Hybrid Squad, and I didn't really think he said much. Yeah, big up, man. It's a great, great watch, and I don't think he said much wrong, if I'm honest with you. I think he's getting a lot of stick because Daddy's come out to save his boy, when actually that's their interpretation. His interpretation was he got invited onto a podcast and said it how he felt it was. He felt Arteta's dealt with it pretty badly. He said he didn't like the way that it's dealt with, but that's football. He wants David Raya to do well. He wants Arsenal to win the Premier League, and so does Aaron Ramsdale. And when Aaron Ramsdale gets his chance, he'll take it. And I don't think that's bad. I think perhaps it might come across to Aaron Ramsdale that you might feel probably sorry for, because he's probably woke up in the morning and thought, "Oh, Dad, what was it you said?
Yeah, what have you done in it? Yeah, training's awkward now."
That's awkward, yeah. But when you look at it, I don't think Nick Ramsdale did much wrong on what he said. When it comes to what Aaron Ramsdale's gone through, I do think it's harsh. I do think it's football. I don't think that what has happened is wrong. I think the way that we went about it was wrong. And what I mean by that is I don't think bringing 2 number 1 goalkeepers in is a bad thing at the club. Yeah, we've seen it before. It doesn't last forever, by the way, but we have seen it before. Yeah. Because when John Lukic was number 1, nobody wanted David Seaman, bruv. Trust me. Nobody wanted him. They're like, what the hell are we getting David Seaman for? We've got John Lukic. Who's this guy coming in with a tash? And then look what happens. The rest is history, yeah? So when you get to that stage of this guy comes in, who is he? Sometimes it works. Now, David Raya has not taken it to that level, in my opinion. I think
that's my issue.
Yeah, and that's my biggest issue, which is completely different to should Aaron Ramsdale be dropped. It hasn't helped Arteta's situation. The way I think it should have worked is this. You buy a goalkeeper because Matt Turner says, I want to go. Otherwise, you keep Matt Turner as your number 2, right? I think it's a massive upgrade on Matt Turner. I wasn't a huge fan. I think he's
100%. Whether Ramsdale's number 2 or Raya, they're both clear of Turner.
Either one, brother, right? So those two, for me, are now on a pretty level par. And Mikel Arteta's got to decide which one's his number 1, but he had to do it sooner than what he did. Ramsdale started the season. That's fine. We hadn't signed Raya yet. Then when we signed Raya, he continues in goal. Then, boom, overnight, he's dropped forever. And it's like...
kind of what happened to Leno when Ramsdale came in, ironically.
Very similar.
Different context, but yeah, quite similar.
And you know what? It's a great point you mentioned Leno, because this is... Who was the manager when Leno and Martinez was happening? This guy.
Yeah.
So he's already done this before, right? So he's not been able to keep 2 goalkeepers happy in Leno and Martinez. One of them had to go. The same thing happened with Petr Cech and Leno. Cech had to go and retire. And when you look at what's happened now, Ramsdale probably isn't going to be at Arsenal more longer than another 12
I think he's gone in the summer, man.
So it's going to be difficult. Ramsdale deserves to play Champions League football. He's got us there. That's not happening. Ramsdale deserves to be a number 1 goalkeeper. That's not happening. Ramsdale deserves to be the number 1 at England. That's not happening. And this won't help his cause for that. So I think Ramsdale knows he's probably going to have to go because he's out of favour now. I really like him. I've seen more from Ramsdale because I've seen him play longer. In the last few games I've seen of Rare, he's been a lot better, but he had a shaky start. And maybe he's going to be the reason as to why we're now playing out a different style from the back. Maybe he's got something to do with the attributes that he's got in terms of his kicking ability. And maybe he's got more command of his area. And that's what we're now starting to see. So I don't think, and this is the thing, I don't think David Raya has been shocking. I really don't. Some people are saying he's awful. He's been a terrible goalkeeper. Not from what I've seen. It hasn't been
apart
terrible.
from that Champions League game where he gave the ball away for one of the goals away from home.
In
fact, the Chelsea one as well. The cross, I don't know what that was.
He'll continue to have moments. Yeah, he's had a moment against Lons. He's had a moment against Chelsea. He had a moment against Newcastle where if he catches that ball, VAR don't have to get involved 3 times, right? So for me, there's been question marks, but there's question marks over Ramsdale as well. Yeah, I saw him kick the ball out to Southampton striker to put it in. Let's not forget that. So there's goalkeeping mistakes all the time. The problem is how the situation was dealt with that I've not really got right, I don't think, from Mikel Arteta. So that's another thing that he'll have to hold because it's his decision. He's got to deal with that. And I think Ramsdale will have a very good game at the weekend because I believe that he knows he has to. He actually played there, funny enough, not long ago. His first 2 games he's played for Arsenal have been against Brentford at the same ground.
Crazy.
In the Carling Cup, he was I always call it the Carling Cup, Carabao Cup, sorry. He made a brilliant save. Probably the save of the season, to be fair, so far as Arsenal concerned. But he needs a good game at the weekend, man, because obviously Raya can't play. So he needs a great game there.
I feel sorry for Aaron Ramsdale. Like you said, I do feel as a fan, whether Arteta gets it right or not, I do think us Arsenal fans, as much as it's difficult to have allegiances to players and love players and things like that, I think the way we're trying to go, if it works, you know, some players that me and you think right now, the first names on the team sheet, if we win the Premier League and then are trying to retain it, they might not, in theory, be able to help us. So I think we need to look past that. I do think Ramsdale's been done harsh. Now, we know they gave him a new deal for resale value purposes, but new contract, playing week in, week out, you know, I think it speaks volumes that he's held in high regards. A lot of people, like you said in previous examples, didn't even want Ramsdale. He's been relegated twice. He's not good enough, etc., etc. My problem with Raya is, you know, if Raya isn't glaringly obvious better than Ramsdale in its defined margins, if that's what Arteta thinks, cool. If his starting position is higher, if he's better with playing out from the back, if he's more convincing catching crosses, that's great. I don't think the spot has gone from Ramsdale as a fan, like you can't get it back, but maybe in Arteta's head he has, because that was your first choice target. I don't know if Arteta's told Ramsdale, you know what, you're the number 1, but Raya's come to put pressure. If he grabs your shirt, it's your fault. If he said, Ramsdale, you're going to be the number 2, or if he says, you lot, it's a fight. Regardless of what he said, if I was either one of them, it's who started the bigger games. Raya has started the North London derby. He started Chelsea away. He's played the bulk of the Champions League. So it's a bit of a techie one. I don't know where Ramsdale goes in the summer because I just got in my head he goes Newcastle, but you've got Pope. You've been linked with Chelsea. There's Sanchez there. I don't know where else you kind of go. And I just think there isn't too many players that are going to bring significant value to this club in terms of bringing in money. I think we'll get Partey's wages off the wage bill. I think Eddie, Nelson, Smith Rowe, they could be available. And I think you should be able to get 50-odd million for Aaron Ramsdale. And as you said, it doesn't help that his case for the international team that he can't get into the lineup and Southgate's putting pressure, talking about he's not playing. There was a journalist who came out and said Sam Johnson apparently is the number 2 in command now. So Ramsdale's probably going to be getting itchy feet. I do hope he plays well against Brentford, and I do think he will. I just think the demoralizing thing for him is you're probably going to be dropped on Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever we're playing and past that. So just got to try and prove Arteta wrong, man.
I was watching Saturday Social and they put 3 goalkeepers in and Ramsdale weren't there. It was Johnston and Pickford now, and you think that could actually happen. I mean, I hope it doesn't.
That's very feasible.
Destroy him, but it should. It kind of, you know, he was a goalkeeper of the season last year. It's mad. He got in the team of the year.
PFA, yeah. This is the thing with Ramsdale. It's sad, man. It's proper sad, but like the only thing I would say with his dad's comments, I don't think his dad, like you, I don't think his dad has said anything wrong. Obviously, he's going to back his son. And I think he was quite honest in that, you know, Ramsdale isn't going to be smiling. He's not playing. Raya's not pulled up any trees, but, you know, he supports Raya all the way. Where I would have an issue if I was Mikel Arteta is, as we saw with the Jesus comments that we spoke earlier, people don't just look at exactly what has been said. You know, it's all down to interpretation. And if I was the manager, I might think, you know what, players do like to get their agents, their wives, their family members to kind of filter comments. I'm not saying Ramsdale thinks this, but what if your dad's comments are an echo of what you're telling your dad? Like, because your dad is not like a normal fan. He knows exactly how you feel. So I might feel some sort of way, but do you know what it is? We just have to keep going, man. My last couple questions for you as well, man, before I let you get out of here. How are you feeling about Arsenal versus Brentford, man?
I'm quietly confident because I feel like the form that Arsenal were in towards that, going into the momentum of the international break, kind of picked itself up after the St James's Park disappointment. I think we've had a couple of disappointing results. Chelsea comes to mind, obviously Tottenham and Fulham. But other than the Newcastle game, we haven't had a loss. So I think the momentum should be with us. Brentford are still missing Ivan Toney, but they have replaced in terms of Mbeumo, who's been a real important player for them.
He's a problem. Him and Wiesa will be issues if we let them.
Yeah, I think him and Wiesa are definitely two players that are going to be a threat to us. The five at the back thing means it's going to be difficult for us to score against Brentford as well, right?
And break them down. Wow.
Yeah. So I do fancy this to be an Arsenal victory, but not a high-scoring one. I think I've gone for 2-0, but I think I said last night when I made my prediction that it won't be like we'll dominate possession, we'll have it all. They had their chances, and we've got
There'll be nervy moments for sure.
For sure, man. So I'm thinking maybe we'll get potentially go 1-0 up and get one towards the end. But I do think it will be a real tough, thought-out fixture. But I'm going to go 2-0 Arsenal, man.
I'm going to go 2-1, man. I think, it being evening at the Emirates after the international break, it's a bit annoying because it seems like in these last couple of international breaks, we build up some real momentum and then, quote unquote, it kind of goes flat because we're not playing. Brentford, no one wants to play against them. I know they're not firing as much as they are, but they've got a great manager, as you said, 3 at the back. They've got some lovely technicians. If you give them an inch, they'll take yards. If we switch off for a second, we're in issues. And for me, this season, the London derbies have been, there's obviously been more, but the London derbies are the ones where I'm like, oh, we're not helping our case. Spurs at home, Chelsea away, Fulham at home. So I don't want that to kind of continue on Saturday. So I'm going to go with 2-1. My last question for you, how do you feel about Douglas Luiz? Do you think it's feasible in January?
It should be, but it depends how much Arsenal have got and also how much Villa want. Because if we're looking to put in a bid of 25 million, then they're going to say, see you later. We're going to have to raise it to near enough 50 million, man, because they've been on fire, hasn't he? So I don't know how much they want. Maybe they want more than 50. I ain't got a Scooby how much they want. Like Ivan Toney, I imagine he'll be 75 to 100 to 80 million because they want 100. That means they're not going to come down much more than that. So, yeah, I don't know personally. I wanted Ivan Toney and Pedro Neto in January. I feel like we need a centre midfielder now that we've got problems again. I think those 3 players all being Premier League proven, Ivan Toney, Pedro Neto and Douglas Luiz, would definitely take us closer to a title, bro, 100%. Now, we're not going to get them 3. I'll be surprised if we get any more than 1 midfielder, if I'm honest with you. And if it's going to be Zubamendi, if it's going to be Douglas Luiz, if it's going to be this young brother from Brazil who I don't know much about, then we need to get somebody. Yeah.
He's even been linked with Fulham. Apparently, they're close to getting him. So that might be one to etch off the list, bro.
Well, there we go. So it's probably going to be one of the others. I think Douglas Luiz is a good option. I wasn't sure about it when we were linked with him before because I felt we could do better. However, when I'm looking at him now and I'm looking at how pivotal he is to Aston Villa, he's a good set piece taker, takes their corners and free kicks. He's definitely one that I look at and think you can actually do a little bit of both in terms of transition, but also
the 6 and the 8 stuff.
6 and 8 stuff. So I think it would be a wise move. And he's obviously got the Brazilian link with our Brazilian boys. So I think that it would be a good signing, but I just worry about how much Villa would actually want and whether or not he'd actually be worth that. So whether or not paying 65 million again for Douglas Luiz would be worth it. Maybe we could go get somebody better or put that money towards somebody else. But it's going to be hard, man, because we kind of need players. And again, I said in the summer we were short, bruv. I said in the summer we were short and people thought it was a great window. It was a poor window, if I'm honest. We had Declan Rice, which made it a 6.5. The rest of them, let's be real, it weren't great, was it? Kai Havertz, I like Timber, but he's injured. David Raya, I like it, but it's caused problems. We need a lot more than this, man. We need a winger, we need a striker. We need a defensive midfielder and a box-to-box midfielder for me. So, yeah, there's still a lot of positions, man. There's 5 or 6 easily that we're still short. If you're comparing to Man City, if you want to get top 4, we're fine. Don't do anything. We're in the top 4. But I want to win a title, man. So I need to see more players coming in.
I think you said it there, man. And, obviously us fans, we're not managers and we get it right and wrong and stuff like that. But if we can see it, and it's been obvious, like on my channel, it's a running joke that every other transfer window, I'm crying for central midfielders. I very much doubt Mikel Arteta doesn't know that. But at the same time, football's a results business. You know, we look at Gabriel Jesus. I'm sure he's training week in, week out to improve his finishing, but we're just seeing on the weekend, you're putting the balls in the back of the net or not. It's a results business. And it's like with the summer, did you sign these players or not? Now, I don't know who you didn't try to sign. I don't know why. Maybe we didn't get Kudus or Madison or Kovacic or Nunes or Lavia. I can only deal with what we've got. And I agree with you. I don't think the depth is quite good enough, really. And I think that's why at the start of the season, when every fan, and I'm pretty sure you had some on your channel, every player that weren't in the team, it's, their days are numbered, they're done. Now, as the season's gone on, you can see exactly why you need a squad. And I just think we need to bring someone in January. I agree with you. If I could, striker, centre mid, right wing, or just a wide man, I think they're all of equal importance. But for me, if Arteta said you could only have one position, central midfield, because it keeps me up at night, man. I'd like Jorginho, but as I said earlier, I think you sign up for them Spurs away games. I think El Nene's got a role definitely this season, but you're past your sell-by date. Declan Rice is the only guy, and Lord knows if we didn't have Declan Rice, especially if Partey's absence, we're in issues. Even with Declan Rice, like, you obviously, we knew you was going to be groomed as players at 8 and your bread and butter is as a 6. But how much of his development in that new role is being crippled because, you know, you can't really venture forward too much. You have to deal with obviously the lack of legs of Jorginho or the absence of Partey. So it'd be interesting. With Douglas Luiz, if I'm Aston Villa, I'm telling Arsenal where to shove it. Unless you got 65, 70 that you had for Havertz, forget about it. He's a key player. He's signed a new deal. Uno Emery needs him. January is a technical time to sign players. I'm telling you where to shove it, really. So I'm pessimistic. But for me, centre mid, anything beyond the central midfielder is a bonus in January. In fact, centre midfield full stop, because there's no guarantee we're going to sign someone. Let people know where we can find you, man.
Nice one, bro. Listen, first of all, love for having me on, man. And
every time.
Make sure you do me a favor and subscribe to this one and like this, you know that. And make sure you follow DG. Listen, come over to myself at Dan Arsenal 87 if you want to follow me on socials. If you want to follow my YouTube channel, it's Football's 12th Man Podcast, and make sure you come over there. I'll be live pretty much every day, so make sure you come hit subscribe and hit the notifications so you know when I'm on. Big up, people.
There you have it. Make sure you follow him on all his socials, and you can catch him on AFTV, I'm sure. Again, all his information will be in the description. It's been a fantastic talk. Make sure you're liking, commenting, subscribing, and letting us know your thoughts. But for now, we're out, folks. Peace.
There's always just that active red light, defending.
I think it's like